Hello T6 drivers and welcome to the Sinatra instructional video before exterior inspection checklist. This explanatory video is meant to get into great detail on every checklist item in order to vastly improve your knowledge of the aircraft and help you understand why each item is in place. To see checklists in real time and to get a feel for how quickly they should be executed, reference the practical portion of this video at 27 minutes and 10 seconds. This video will be the first in a line of videos that will show you how to execute the checklists on the T6 Bravo with efficiency and precision. We will also discuss some student and instructor techniques that will help you improve your accuracy and pace. In preparation for today's module, ensure you review the before exterior inspection checklist contained in your NATOPS. Make sure your previous module is complete and that viewing this lesson will not interfere with your crew day. The primary publications referenced for this lesson are the T6B NATOPS Training Wing 4 Expanded Checklist found in Training Wing 4 Instruction 3710.13 Charlie T6 Bravo Standardization Instruction and the Quadfold Checklist issued to you at check-in. You can reference these documents on your iPad. First, we will go through the checklist, taking each item step by step, taking the time to thoroughly explain each one. Remember that as you work your way towards becoming a fleet aviator, it is incumbent upon you to be intimately familiar with every checklist item. NATOPS, to include all checklists, is not a substitute for sound judgment, and sound judgment begins with the knowledge you possess of your aircraft. Once we have completed the explanation phase, we will go through the checklist in real time so you can see how quickly you are expected to run the checklist for your first flight. Now that the admin items are out of the way, let's begin. As we approach the aircraft, we will need to know how to open the canopy. There are three positions in which you may find the canopy: closed and latched, on the kickstand, or locked open. First, let's discuss the closed and latched position. Always move the canopy to the closed and latched position when you are off station, meaning not at Navy Corpus, when you will not be returning to the aircraft in a short period of time, if you leave valuables in the aircraft to include your flight gear, or you expect adverse weather conditions to include rain or winds in excess of 40 knots. T6 avionics do not work well with water, and wind in excess of 40 knots is capable of damaging the canopy. These pictures demonstrate the canopy in the closed and latched position. The canopy is tight against the rail with the handle parallel to the deck and facing aft. In order to open the canopy from the closed and latched position, we will need to first press the button to the left of the handle in order to release the lock. Simultaneously grab the handle, moving it down and forward until it is perpendicular to the deck. You will feel the forward and aft latches release while the canopy moves slightly upward and off the rail. You can now lift up on the handle and move the canopy to the locked open position. The following pictures demonstrate the canopy on the kickstand. The kickstand is normally used when there are no adverse weather conditions, but we are trying to keep air circulating through the cockpit and keep it cool on hot summer days. If you intend to put the canopy on the kickstand, ensure that it won't be raining for the duration and that winds are within limits. When opening a canopy that's on the kickstand, the first thing we need to do is remove the kickstand from its catch. Do this by moving the kickstand aft until it is outside the catch. Then we can continue to move it up into the stowed position. Once the kickstand is in the stowed position, we can now lift up on the handle and move the canopy to the locked open position. Let's take a moment and discuss the locked open position. In order to get to this position, you must open the canopy all the way. Once you pass a certain position, you can hear an audible click. That click is another latch that keeps the canopy locked in the open position, ensuring it won't close without releasing the lock. During pre-flight, IPs and students sometimes place knee boards or iPads on the canopy rails. The canopy lock will prevent the canopy from closing and causing damage to our equipment and, more importantly, to the rail. Now that we have the canopy open, it is imperative that we do a few things before jumping into the checklist. First, the student will verify the ejection seat safety pin and CFIS handle safety pin are fully installed. If the pins are properly installed, the student will say 2 pins in. At the same time, the instructor will verify his or her ejection seat safety pin and CFIS handle safety pin are fully installed, as well as verifying the ISS mode selector is in the solo position. If everything is correct, the IP will say 2 pins in solo. The The student will then say Roger Solo. This is for the student to verbally acknowledge that you understand the ISS mode selector is in the solo position. These are very important steps prior to the checklist, as it is vital that you ensure these pins are in the correct position and fully installed. You should always treat the ejection seat and CFIS handle as loaded guns. Any misstep or miscalculation where these systems are concerned could absolutely be fatal. Please treat these handles with the utmost care and respect. Now that the canopy is open, let's jump into some cockpit preparation techniques. These techniques can be used to make cockpit preparation and entry faster, but it is not necessary to accomplish these tasks prior to beginning the checklist. If an IP gives you techniques that you like more, or you find something that works better for you, feel free to do those things as long as they fall within the confines of NATOPS and the FTI. These pictures illustrate how a clean cockpit should look. This is what you should see when you open the canopy, and make sure this is how your cockpit looks when you are done for the day. Your leg garters should be wrapped around each leg of the seat with the clasps facing inboard. Your lap belts should be fully released and laying on the seats as shown or crossed in an X. Your upper fittings should be secured to the seat on their posts. Failure to ensure these are in the proper position can result in damage to the seawars, which is a very expensive repair to both the seawars and canopy that will ultimately down the aircraft. All switches on the upfront control panel should be in the down position. All buttons on the comm panel should be in with the exception of the Vox, and all switches in the correct position. If you put your helmet on and your instructor is unable to hear you, you most likely have the Vox button pushed in. The parking brake should be set. If you plan to remove chocks to fully inspect the tires for your exterior pre-flight, it is vital to make sure the parking brake is set appropriately. Your oxygen hoses and comm cords should be stowed facing aft with the quick disconnect and orange O-ring on your emergency oxygen hose in place. Sometimes the clasp for the oxygen hoses and comm cords is broken. If this is the case, it will be annotated in the ADB with all FOD accounted for. If it isn't, this is a problem and the aircraft is down. As you get more acquainted with the T6, you will be able to verify these things faster and faster. Prior to jumping into the checklist, we can do a few things to prepare our cockpit for entry. First, move your leg restraint garters out of the way. You can unclasp them and place them on the deck or over to the side of each panel. Next, move your lap belts to the sides of the seat. This will facilitate you getting into the seat more quickly. Then unstrap your oxygen hoses and comm cord and lay them down on the panel. When setting up your seat this way, make sure the ejection seat pan and side consoles are clear of all lap straps, cords, and connections prior to adjusting seat height to prevent possible damage to the seat or equipment. Lastly, remove the gust lock in order to put your rudder pedals in the correct position. This will keep you from having to adjust your pedals once you are already strapped into the aircraft. You should practice getting your rudder pedals into the correct position prior to your first flight. To set your rudder pedals correctly, use the simulators or ask maintenance control for access to the pre-flight bird. Set your seat to the desired height and run the rudder pedals all the way forward. Then move the pedals back to the position you are comfortable with while counting how many turns it takes to get to that position. Alternatively, if you normally position your rudder pedals greater than halfway aft, you can also count the turns from the full aft position. Now that we have prepped the cockpit, let's get into the before exterior inspection checklist. This checklist is completed prior to the exterior inspection. This is done to ensure the basic systems needed for flight are working appropriately before we go inspecting the exterior of the aircraft. If the items on this checklist are broken or inoperable, it makes doing an exterior pre-flight pointless. Note that all checklist items in yellow are dual concurrence items, requiring a response from both the student and IP. Do not continue the checklist past dual concurrence items without getting a response from your IP. The best way to practice dual concurrence is to have another student perform the checklist with you, acting as an IP. Have the other student purposely not respond to dual concurrence items so you can practice not skipping them. For the explanation portion of this video, we will not reference dual concurrence. To begin a checklist, always state the name of the checklist you are about to run. This allows both pilots to key into what you are about to do and creates a dual layer of safety by ensuring you both verify you are running the appropriate checklist. Note that it is not necessary to say the number next to the item in the checklist you are running. Just ensure you are going in the appropriate order and not skipping any items. For the purposes of this explanation, I will state the number to make it easier for you to follow along. In this case, we will start the checklist by saying, before exterior inspection checklist. 1. Seat safety pin installed. Verify that the ejection seat safety pin is fully inserted and that the remove before flight warning streamer is free and clear of the ejection seat handle. 2. Ejection handle, check condition. Ensure the metal loop in the ejection handle is not frayed or broken and that the molded covering is not cracking or faded. These pictures show the ejection handle in the appropriate position and condition. Now we can see a faded and frayed ejection handle as well as an ejection handle in an inappropriate position. If your handle is frayed or faded, report this to your IP so maintenance may inspect the handle. If the handle is in an inappropriate position, double check that your seat is properly pinned and gently move the handle to an upright position. 3. Cephas handle safety pin, confirm installed. Ensure the Cephas handle safety pin is fully inserted through the handle with the bottom of the pin showing on the back side of the handle mechanism. It is important to note that the Cephas handle safety pin is a locking pin. In order to remove it, you must push on the head of the pin to be able to pull it out. It is vital you remember this in an emergency that requires you to blow Cephas. 4. Cephas pin storage box, closed and latched. The Cephas pin storage box is located in the rear cockpit and is no longer used for storing the Cephas pins. Both pins will remain installed at all times until an emergency arises requiring us to remove them to blow Cephas. Failure to close and latch the Cephas pin storage box prior to closing the canopy may damage the canopy when attempting to close it. 5. Starter norm. With starter engaged, meaning the switch is in the auto or manual position, the propeller will begin to rotate after electrical power is applied to the aircraft. We do not want this to happen during this checklist. If the prop is not clear or still has covers installed, we run the risk of damaging the propeller or engine. 6. Ignition norm. 7. Avionics master off. 8. EVAP blower off. 9. ISS mode selector solo. The checklist also states or command forward as required. As a student, you will never operate the aircraft on the ground or in the air with the mode selector in command forward. With the mode selector in both seats will eject if an unpinned ejection handle is pulled, even if the other seat is pinned. This setting ensures the rear seat fires and leaves the aircraft first in a very specific time sequence. Command forward is normally used when an IP is flying in front with someone who is unfamiliar with the T6 in the rear, such as a VIP receiving an introductory flight. With the ISS mode selector set to command forward, the crew member in the rear cockpit initiates ejection of the rear seat only, and the crew member in the front cockpit initiates ejection for both front and rear seats, with the rear seat ejecting first in the appropriate sequence, even if the rear seat ejection handle safety pin is installed. This prevents the IP from being ejected from a perfectly good airplane if the VIP accidentally pulls the ejection handle from the rear seat. 10. DTS DVR cartridge not required. Here the checklist states insert as required. We no longer use the DTS DVR cartridge. Maintenance will continue to install them in the aircraft, but they are not required for our purposes. 11. Circuit breakers in. Make sure all circuit breakers are in on both the left and right panels. If any circuit breakers are out, report this to your IP and maintenance. 12. PCL check off. Verify 2 audible clicks per PCL and that the PCLs in both cockpits are interconnected and move freely through the full range of motion. The PCL incorporates a cutoff gate to prevent inadvertent engine shutdown. When the PCL is moved forward to idle during engine start, 2 roller bearings lock in place on the front side of a rocker cam detent to secure the cutoff gate. Under the PCL, we have the finger lift guard, painted in gray, and the PCL cutoff finger lift, painted in red. The finger lift guard is in place to help avoid inadvertently pulling the PCL to cutoff in flight by blocking you from reaching the PCL cutoff finger lift. Pushing down on the finger lift guard and then raising the PCL cutoff finger lift moves the rocker cam gate out of the way and allows the PCL to move to the cutoff position, effectively shutting down the engine. Some of the T6s on the line do not have the finger lift guard installed. You must be extra vigilant with your fingers around the PCL in these aircraft. Verify positive idle stop and no forward PCL movement is required to move aft past idle stop to off. Verify PCL cutoff finger lift moves freely. Raise the PCL cutoff finger lift and verify the PCL can be moved from idle to off, and verify the finger lift guard returns to its spring-loaded position. Based on what you just heard, this sounds like a complicated procedure, but it is actually very easy. Take a look at these two videos to see how it's done. Gear handle down. Verify the landing gear handles are down in both cockpits. 14. Master arm safe. Verify the switch is in the safe position. 15. Brake reservoir checked. Notify maintenance if the filler plug green band is not visible or the lower red band normally beneath the bulkhead shows. The lower red band indicates an overfill while the upper red band indicates the fluid level is low, provided you cannot see any green. 16. Firewall shutoff handle down. Guard in place. Verify the handle is in the down position and that the guard latch is folded securely over the top of the handle. 17. Aux bat on. As a technique, IPs will recommend you go ahead and turn on the standby VHF control head at this time. You are already in the general location and it takes a moment for the standby VHF control head to spool up. Turn this on and come back to it in the checklist on item 19. To turn it on, press down on the button to the left labeled Power, PWR. 18. Fire detection system, Fire 1, Test 1. Hold the fire warning test switch to the Fire 1 position. Check that both bulbs in the upper half of the fire light illuminate in both cockpits. Fire 2 is not run off the auxiliary battery and will not be tested here. 19. Standby VHF control head checked off. If you already turned this on after turning on the auxiliary battery, verify that the screen is not damaged and displays the correct information, and hold down the power button. You will see a countdown for 3 seconds on the screen. Hold the button down until the countdown is complete to turn the standby VHF control head off. If you accidentally leave the screen on or accidentally turn it on at some later point, the word remote will be present on the VHF screen of your UFCP. This message lets you know the standby VHF control head is on. 20. Backup flight instrument check. Verify that the BFI in each cockpit is receiving power and no fault messages are visible. Note that the BFI will not relay accurate information until it aligns, and therefore it will display a red X and alignment countdown upon initial power-up. For the purposes of this checklist, if you see the L3 communications page come on, you can consider the BFI checked. 21. Battery on. Depress the master warning and master caution lights to cancel. 22. Aux bat off. Place the aux bat switch to the off position. 23. Aux bat test. Hold the aux bat test switch forward to test for a minimum of 5 seconds and ensure the green test light remains illuminated until the switch is released. If tested too soon after placing the auxiliary battery to off, the light may not illuminate. If this is the case, reattempt. If the light still fails to illuminate, the auxiliary battery is not functioning properly. Notify maintenance to determine if the aircraft is down. 24. Battery voltage, 25 volts. You can see on the screen we have 25 volts. Call out the number you see. Verify a minimum of 23.5 volts for a battery start or a minimum of 22 volts for an external power start. Always use an external power cart when able to help preserve battery life. We will always use external power carts at Navy. As a technique to improve checklist speed, you can begin moving your seat to the desired position while the screens are starting up. Ensure the ejection seat pan and side consoles are clear of all lap straps, cords, and connections prior to adjusting seat height to prevent damage to the seat or equipment. Your shoulder straps should be connected to the headrest before adjusting your seat. 25. Fuel quantity, 1,030 pounds, heavy on the right. As a technique, students will also add heavy on the right or left to remind them of the need to reset the fuel system. In this case, we are heavy on the right. The amount of fuel you observe should be fairly close to what you wrote down from the A sheet. If the quantity varies greatly, there could be a problem and maintenance should be notified. It is also normal to see a fuel imbalance. The aircraft could be heavy on the right or heavy on the left. Once the aircraft is started, there are things we can do to resolve this problem. 26. Seat height adjusted. If you have not already done so, adjust your seat height to the desired position. Remember to ensure the ejection seat pan and side consoles are clear of all lap straps, cords, and connections prior to adjusting seat height to prevent damage to the seat or equipment. Your shoulder strap should be connected to the headrest before adjusting your seat. 27. Battery off. Turn the battery switch off. 28. Cephas donor assemblies inspected. Inspect the front and rear cockpit for protruding firing plungers. Actuation of a Cephas initiator will cause the detonator to fire plungers in the Cephas donor assembly. These plungers will not cause detonation of the Cephas explosive cords if the canopy is open, but will be in a position to initiate detonation when the canopy is closed. Now we are at the point in the checklist where we will go through all the things you need to inspect on your ejection seat. It is imperative you pay close attention to and thoroughly inspect all these items, as the ejection seat could save your life. Do not voice the items you are inspecting. Just go through each item and announce inspected when you are done. 29 Alpha. Cephas attach bolt. Check. Ensure the bolt threads are visible facing inboard towards the seat as depicted. 29 Bravo. Top latch mechanism. Check. Ensure the latches are rotated down towards the seat and in the correct position fore and aft. 29 Charlie. Parachute risers, inertia reel, check condition and operation. Pull both parachute riser and inertia reel straps out to their full extension. Ensure both parachute riser and inertia reel straps are pulled out slowly and simultaneously. Attempting to test the locking ability of the straps may damage the harness reel velocity lock mechanism. Allow both straps to slowly and simultaneously retract. Inertia reel straps should fully retract freely without binding, twisting, or leaving any slack. A jammed inertia reel will prevent proper harness operation and increase the risk of injury during ejection. If jamming or binding occurs, or if inertia reel straps do not fully retract, notify an egress specialist prior to flight. 29 Delta. Lap straps. Check condition. When moving the lap straps, place them gently onto the side consoles so as not to cause damage. Check condition of woven belts, coke fittings, and yellow release tabs. 29 Echo. Leg restraint lines. Check secure to the floor and seat. Make sure the lines are not visibly twisted or worn and that the shear ring is in between the floor and snubber unit. If the shear ring is retracted into the snubber unit or on the wrong side, it can cause catastrophic problems with your ejection. 29 Foxtrot. Ejection seat manual override handle. Visually check full down and locked. Do not lift the MOR handle. Lifting the MOR handle can result in initiation of the manual release sequence, which can cause injury or death to personnel and/or damage to equipment. Ensure the white selector arrow next to the MOR handle is pointing to manual. 29 Golf. Oxygen hoses, main and emergency. Check condition. Ensure hoses are not damaged and emergency oxygen hose orange O-ring is in place, as well as the dust cover with associated spring on your main oxygen supply hose. If either the orange O-ring or the dust cover and spring are missing and do not have the proper annotation in the ADB, notify maintenance. 29. Hotel. Seat Survival Kit, SSK. Set and check. Make sure the ADU mode selector switch is in the desired position and visually inspect that ADU and radio beacon cables are properly connected to the ejection seat. If ADU and radio beacon cables are not properly connected, the automatic function of the SSK will fail, and the radio beacon will not automatically activate if the ejection sequence is activated. 29. India. Ejection seat oxygen supply. Check. The emergency oxygen cylinder will be charged to a minimum of 1800 psi at 70 degrees Fahrenheit. However, indicated pressure is affected by temperature changes. To approximate acceptable bottle pressure, add or subtract 3.5 psi for each degree the temperature is above or below 70 degrees Fahrenheit. 30. Gus lock stowed. Remove the gus lock from the control stick and ensure it is fully stowed. Slight backstick pressure on the stick may be necessary to remove the gus lock. Pull up on the gus lock initially and then let it down. Failure to stow the gus lock completely may prevent the flight controls from operating properly. Any attempt to actuate the flight controls with the gus lock not properly stowed may result in damage to the flight control assemblies. Ensure the gus lock is not impeded by the leather boot at the base of the control stick. Make sure the silver tab is fully inserted at the base of the console. 31. HUD combiner cover removed and stowed. Place the HUD combiner cover in your map case or bring it down and place it in the baggage compartment after the before exterior inspection checklist is complete. Before exterior inspection checklist complete. As a technique, if you ever have to hold a checklist, make sure you voice holding the checklist at battery off or wherever you are holding the checklist. This will cue you and your instructor in on the fact that the checklist is not complete. This can go a long way in helping to prevent mishaps. Always remember to close out a checklist whenever all the items are complete. We do this by saying, before exterior inspection checklist complete. Now that we have taken a detailed look at the before exterior inspection checklist, let's see its practical counterpart. Before jumping into the checklist, let's take a look at some of the cockpit preparation techniques we used before. These techniques can help you get faster at running the checklist, but are not necessary. To be considered proficient, you should be able to run the before exterior inspection checklist in under 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Coming up to the cockpit, as a technique, sometimes I like to set my cockpit up before we get into the checklist. So some of the things that you can do, we'll just run through and check really quickly. PCL should be in the off position. The landing gear handle should be down. The emergency gear handle should be in. We should check all these switches to make sure that they're down on the UFCP. So all of these should be in the down position. Want to make sure that your COM buttons are in, but your VOX buttons should be out. You can go ahead and remove the gus lock. So you'll need to pull back on the stick, remove the gus lock, and make sure that it goes all the way in the hole. Making sure that your parking brake is set, and then all the switches on this side, and then coming down and releasing this to make sure that your oxygen and your COM cords are down. We put those down there. And then I move these straps out of the way on my seat. And then you can take your leg restraint garters off, and you can put them over on the sides here, like so, after you've checked your switch position, or you can take them and you can put them down on the floor. Alright, now that that's out of the way, let's get into the before exterior inspection checklist. Alright, sir, you ready for the before exterior inspection checklist?
Yep.
Seat safety pin installed.
Installed.
Ejection handle checked.
Checked.
Cevis handle safety pin confirm installed.
Installed.
Cevis pin storage box.
Closed and latched.
Roger. Starter norm.
Norm.
Ignition norm.
Norm.
Avionics master off. Evap blower off.
Off.
ISS mode selector.
Solo.
Roger solo. DTS DVR cartridge is not required. Circuit breakers. In.
In.
PCL. Check off.
Checked off.
Gear handle. Down.
Down.
Master arm. Safe. Brake reservoir. Check. Firewall shutoff handle. Down. Guard in place. Aux bat. On. Turn on the standby VHF control head. Fire detection system. Fire 1. Test 1.
Test 1.
Standby VHF control head. Check. Off. Backup flight instrument. Good BFI.
Good BFI.
Battery on. Aux bat. Off. Aux bat. 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, 4 1000, 5 1000. Test battery voltage. 21.4 volts for the purposes of this checklist. We'll call it check. So 21.2 volts, check. Fuel quantity, 978 pounds, slightly heavy on the left. Seat height. Adjusted.
Adjusted.
Battery. Off. Cephas donor assemblies. Inspected.
Inspected.
Ejection seat. So normally I start here. I check my leg restraint garters and the lines. You want to make sure that the shear ring, make sure that it's not retracted into the snubber unit. Check the MOR handle and make sure that it's down. Don't pull up on it. But I check to make sure that the seat is in the manual position. That looks good. I want to check our oxygen hoses and comm cords. I want to make sure that the orange O-ring is there, that the cover is in place, the dust cover, and to make sure that the lines are all good, you can lay these down on the side. Then I check to make sure that my restraints are good. Move this over to the side. And then coming up on the side here, you want to check to make sure Cephas attach bolt looks good. And the top latch mechanisms on both sides are good. And then moving over to the top, you want to check to make sure that the top looks good. This is the punch for the canopy if you actually have to eject. Coming down the side over here, the top latch mechanism on this side is in the correct position. You want to check your parachute risers and inertial reels. Extend them fully and then release them and then put them back in the proper location. And coming down this side here, you want to check to make sure that your oxygen is good. Make sure that it's full and in the green. If it's not, you want to check the temperature for that day. And then coming down further, you want to move this out of the way. Make sure that your oxygen green pull ring is in the correct position. Your SSK, make sure that the handle is down and in the correct location. Make sure that your seat is not locked. This is in the unlocked position. This is the locked position. Make sure that you're unlocked. And then make sure everything underneath here looks good, connected. You want to check the leg restraint garter. Make sure that everything looks good there. And then check to make sure that your shear ring is not retracted into the snubber on this side as well. Ejection seat, inspected.
Inspected.
Make sure that your seat height is correct and that your rudder pedal's adjusted. Make sure that the gust lock is stowed. HUD combiner cover is removed and stowed before exterior inspection checklist complete. This concludes the Sinatra video presentation on Before Exterior Inspection Checklist. Review this video as necessary, as well as the T6 NATOPS Training Wing 4 Expanded Checklist and the Quad Fold Checklist. Again, to be proficient, you should be able to run this checklist from start to finish in under 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Feel free to find an instructor and ask questions as needed, and have a great Navy day.